She's gone from being a vilified royal mistress to the woman who will now shape the future of the monarchy, Camilla Parker Bowles.
An earth-shattering secret right at Buckingham, a seemingly minor incident during the maintenance of an ancient painting, has shaken the entire royal family. When a heavy portrait hanging in the west corridor suddenly fell down behind the rotten wooden frame, emerged a yellowed envelope clamped tightly as if deliberately hidden for decades. Charles personally opened the envelope. He was stunned. Inside was a contract transferring royal property which is never allowed to be transferred in the name of Laura Camilla's daughter. The signature and legal seal were stark and cold, making his hands tremble. If this were true, then a conspiracy had been operating for a long time, right in the heart of the royal family. Just a few days later, strange rumors spread throughout the palace's inner circles. Charles often lost focus, muttered to himself at night, and even forgot important details. The whispers all pointed to a single image, a weakened king with faltering memory, no longer trustworthy. But is Charles really losing his sanity? Or is it just a sophisticated smear campaign to neutralize any accusations from him? All suspicious eyes turned toward Camilla, the always clever, sharp wife who could never hide her ambitions. In the last days of August 2025, as the chilly autumn winds began to weave through the ancient corridors of Buckingham Palace, a routine maintenance activity was underway. The precious ancient paintings of the British royal family were meticulously inspected to ensure they retained their splendor through time, and King Charles III personally supervised this work. For him, it was not just a duty, but also a way to connect with the past. Suddenly, a loud noise echoed, shattering the silence. The royal portrait hanging in the west corridor, a masterpiece from the 18th century depicting his ancestors, abruptly fell to the marble floor. The maintenance workers rushed over in panic to check. As they lifted it, King Charles unexpectedly discovered behind the time-yellowed wooden frame an old envelope clamped tightly. It was not part of the painting. Clearly someone had deliberately hidden it there. Charles took the envelope and slowly opened it. Inside was a contract transferring royal property, a massive asset belonging to the Windsor dynasty, transferred to Laura Camilla's own daughter. Camilla's signature and the legal royal seal filled the page. But what shocked Charles the most was his own signature at the bottom of the contract. "When did I approve this?" he whispered to himself, his heart pounding like a drum. A chilling sensation ran down his spine. This was not an ordinary mistake. This was a conspiracy, a betrayal from those closest to him. Charles quickly hid the envelope in his coat pocket, trying to maintain a calm expression in front of the surrounding crowd. He ordered the work to continue, as if nothing had happened, but in his heart, a storm was brewing. He decided to investigate quietly. He couldn't trust anyone at this point, not even his most loyal aides. That night in his private room, Charles sat alone at his desk. The dim yellow light illuminated his face, revealing the harsh wrinkles. He held the envelope, flipping it back and forth, as if seeking answers from the lines of text. He couldn't help but suspect his current wife, Camilla. "If this is true, I truly cannot forgive her. I will uncover the truth," he whispered, clenching his fist tightly. In the bedroom, just a few hours after the portrait incident in the West Corridor, a trusted aide, tall and slender with sharp eyes, quietly entered her private room. "Your Majesty," he whispered, "King Charles has personally inspected that painting very thoroughly. It seems he has found something unusual." Camilla, sitting at the tea table with a fragrant cup of Earl Grey, suddenly paused. Her hands, always elegant, froze in mid-air. Her eyes narrowed, her gaze sharp as a knife. A cold smile fleetingly crossed her lips, but her heart beat faster than usual. "My secret may have been exposed." She thought, a feeling of anxiety creeping into her chest. Camilla was not one to panic easily. She had weathered many storms to climb to her current position. But this time she sensed real danger. If Charles read the contents inside and knew she was the one who hid the envelope, all her meticulous plans could collapse like a sandcastle before crashing waves. She set down the teacup, stood up, and slowly walked to the window overlooking the royal gardens. The clusters of red roses under the faint sunlight seemed to mock her unease. Camilla took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "I cannot let him act first." She muttered, her voice low, but full of determination. She turned back and immediately summoned her most trusted people, a small group consisting of aides, her private secretary, and a lawyer who had worked for her family since her days in Gloucestershire. They stood before her, silently awaiting orders, not daring to look directly into the Queen's sharp eyes. Charles's study. Camilla ordered, her voice cold as ice. "Search it thoroughly. Find anything related to the painting or strange documents. Leave no trace." The shadows nodded and quickly vanished into the palace's darkness. That night, while Charles was lost in thought in his private room, Camilla's agents sneaked into his study. They opened locks, flipped through books, and checked every drawer. The soft rustling of papers echoed in the quiet space. But the envelope was not there. One of the group whispered through the radio, "Not found, Your Majesty." Camilla, waiting in her private room, slammed her hand on the table. "Damn it!" she muttered, gripping the armrest so tightly her knuckles turned white. A rare emotion, anxiety, surged in the heart of this powerful woman. She knew Charles was not easy to deal with. If he had hidden the envelope, it meant he was planning. Camilla could not wait any longer. She decided to strike harder using her most powerful weapon, public opinion. She ordered her trusted team to spread rumors within the royal inner circles. "Say that Charles is showing signs of memory loss," she instructed, her voice even but full of calculation. "He often talks to himself at night, forgets important meetings. Let everyone think that age has made him weak." The rumors spread quickly like wildfire in dry forest. The aides, from long-serving servants to high-level advisors, began whispering behind Charles's back. "King Charles has been acting strange lately," one said, voice full of suspicion. "Once I saw him standing alone in the garden, muttering as if arguing with someone." Another advisor nodded. "Perhaps age has made him no longer lucid." The rumors spread outside the palace to elite clubs in London, where news-hunting journalists began to take notice. Camilla monitored everything from afar, sitting in her private room with a glass of red wine, a satisfied smile on her lips. She needed to undermine Charles's credibility, turning him into a senile old man who was unreliable. Then, if he tried to accuse her, everyone would think it was just the delusion of a declining king. But deep down, Camilla was not entirely at ease. Late at night, when the palace was plunged into silence, she sat alone, looking at a photo taken with Charles from their early days together. The moments of love, the times they overcame storms together, now seemed like a luxurious memory. She recalled Charles's gentle eyes, and now those eyes might be looking at her with suspicion and anger. But then she brushed aside that fleeting thought. She had spent half her life labeled as the third person, and now she had to reclaim everything for herself and her children. "I do this for Laura," she told herself, trying to justify her actions. Camilla gripped the wine glass tightly. "It's because you all forced me to do this," she whispered, her voice fading into the darkness. The tension in Buckingham Palace was escalating. The lavish corridors, once symbols of power and nobility, had now become battlegrounds of conspiracies. Camilla knew Charles would not stop. He held something dangerous, and she had to act faster. In her mind, a new plan was forming. Bolder, more dangerous. But she also knew that each wrong move could cost her everything. The palace was no longer a peaceful place. It was the line between victory and defeat, between power and collapse. The next morning, the pale sunlight filtered through the windows of Buckingham Palace, illuminating the haggard face of King Charles III. He woke up with a heavy feeling, as if the burden of the entire monarchy was weighing on his shoulders. As he entered his private study, he immediately noticed unusual signs. Books shifted the lock with pry marks, and some papers out of their usual positions. Camilla. He muttered, his voice deep and thick anger surging in his chest. He clenched his fist, the feeling of betrayal, like a sharp knife stabbing into his heart. The woman he once loved, with whom he shared every joy and sorrow, was now plotting against him. Charles summoned his private secretary, a middle-aged man with loyal but worried eyes. "Who entered here last night?" he asked, his voice sharp. The secretary bowed his head, hesitating. "Your Majesty, Queen Camilla visited with the reason of checking on your health." Charles felt hot blood rushing to his face. This confirmation was like the final hammer blow affirming his suspicions. Camilla not only knew about the mysterious envelope, but was also trying to destroy the evidence. The pain mixed with anger made him almost suffocate. But Charles was not one to be easily defeated. With a heavy heart, he decided to act. He contacted Edward Langley, an old lawyer, a university friend not involved with the royal family. In a small coffee shop on the outskirts of London, under the dim light of hanging lamps, Charles secretly handed the contract to Edward. The lawyer, with silver-rimmed glasses slipping down his nose, read each line attentively. After a while, he looked up, his eyes serious. "This is a sophisticated legal trick, Your Majesty. Camilla used a shell company to transfer ownership of royal land to Laura. Your seal seems forged." Charles clenched his fist, his face flushed with anger. "I will not let her escape," he declared, his voice trembling with emotion, as if the whole world was collapsing before his eyes. Edward nodded, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We need more evidence, but this is a start." After the meeting, Charles decided to strike first because he knew Camilla would not stop. She had dared to spread rumors about his health, and he was sure her next move would be even more cunning. He had gathered information about Camilla's private doctor, a man named Harold Grayson, who had once accepted bribes from pharmaceutical companies to prescribe incorrectly. In a secret meeting at a small hotel, Charles confronted Grayson. Under the dim light, he placed the file proving Grayson's guilt on the table. "Either you cooperate, or your career will be ruined," Charles said, his voice low, but full of authority. Grayson, face pale, sweat beading on his forehead, had to confess. "Camilla required me to keep silent about some things. About you, but she said she would give orders when necessary." Charles nodded, feeling this was a good opportunity, but knowing it was only the first step in a dangerous war. That evening, to lure Camilla out, Charles decided to throw a smokescreen. He pretended to talk loudly on the phone in the corridor, where Camilla's ears and eyes could hear. "I have the evidence," he said, his voice echoing, "and I will announce it all." He spoke with a confident tone, but sweat rolled down his forehead. This was a risky move. If Camilla took the bait, she would be forced to act. And if his suspicions were correct, then his bed-sharing wife had truly done something unacceptable. His emotions were a whirlwind anxiety mixed with determination. Charles knew this war would not be easy, but he was ready. At the same time, in the shadows of Buckingham Palace, Camilla sensed the threat approaching. Her sophisticated spy network had eavesdropped on King Charles III's call when he loudly declared, "I have the evidence." Those words were like a sharp knife stabbing into her dark heart. Camilla sat in her private room, the dim yellow light illuminating her face, revealing the tension. Her hand gripped the glass of red wine tightly. Her eyes narrowed, her gaze sharp, as if calculating every move. "He knows," she whispered, her voice trembling with anger and fear. Though she had prepared mentally, this news still made her extremely anxious. Camilla was not one to submit easily, but this time she felt her foundation of power shaking. Charles was not just a betrayed husband, he was a king with formidable power and determination. She stood up, walked to the window overlooking the royal gardens. The clusters of red roses under the moonlight seemed to whisper the palace's secrets. Camilla took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. "I must act before he announces anything," she told herself, her voice full of determination. She summoned her trusted team again. "We need a new plan," Camilla said, her voice cold as ice. "We must do everything to prevent Charles from destroying my plan." Camilla's plan was ruthless but sophisticated. She ordered the creation of a fake medical file about Charles, describing him as having undergone secret treatment for mental disorders. This document, drafted by a doctor she had bribed, claimed that Charles, in a state of unconsciousness, had signed the contract transferring royal land to Laura, her daughter. "If he tries to accuse me, everyone will think it's the product of a deranged mind," Camilla said to her secretary, a cold smile on her lips. She knew public opinion was a powerful weapon, and she wielded it like a master. The fake file was circulated internally in the royal family through anonymous emails and whispers in the corridors. At the same time, Camilla contacted a few close journalists to leak the news. In just a few days, major newspapers began publishing sensational headlines. "King Charles Old and Senile," and "Does the British royal family need a new king?" Public opinion began to boil. Royal members from aides to advisors started doubting Charles. A high-level advisor whispered during afternoon tea, "He has been forgetful lately. Perhaps age has made him unfit." Camilla, from her private room, watched everything with satisfaction mixed with remorse. She knew she was destroying the man who once loved her, but "I must protect Laura," she told herself, trying to dispel the guilt. Meanwhile, Charles felt the growing isolation. Aides looked at him with suspicious eyes, meetings became tense, and he heard whispers behind his back. Late at night, in his private room, he sat alone holding a glass of whiskey, his eyes weary. "They think I'm mad," he muttered, his voice choked. The pain of betrayal made his heart wrench, but he did not fall. He knew Camilla was playing a dangerous game, and he had to counterattack. Charles held the envelope containing the contract, gripping it tightly like a reminder of his goal. "She will not win," he whispered, his eyes burning with determination. Camilla, meanwhile, did not stop at spreading rumors. She ordered surveillance of all Charles's movements, from phone calls to letters. One evening she received a report that Charles had met a secret lawyer. "He's investigating," she muttered, anxiety surging. Camilla knew time was running out. She decided to accelerate the plan, preparing a final blow, another fake document claiming Charles had agreed to abdicate for health reasons. This document, if announced, would make all of Charles's accusations meaningless. But she also felt a vague fear. If Charles found solid evidence, everything would collapse. Buckingham Palace was now a battlefield where every step could lead to victory or defeat. In the following days, Buckingham Palace felt heavy, as if a storm was about to hit. King Charles III, after discovering Camilla's conspiracy, felt like he was walking on a thin wire. The rumors about his deranged mind had spread widely, making aides and even some royal members look at him with suspicious eyes. But Charles was not alone. Princess Anne, his sister, famous for her strong personality and loyalty, became an unexpected ally. In a secret meeting at a small house in the Cotswolds, where no one could eavesdrop, Anne grasped Charles's hand tightly, her eyes firm as steel. "Brother, we will turn the tables," she said, her voice low but full of determination. Charles, though exhausted from sleepless nights, felt a glimmer of hope. "Thank you, Anne," he replied. His voice choked with emotion. "I cannot let Camilla destroy what our ancestors built." They knew time was short. Charles, with the envelope containing the contract transferring royal land to Laura, Camilla's daughter, in hand, understood that more solid evidence was needed to expose the conspiracy. Anne, with her sharpness, suggested, "We must trace the seal and land registry number on the contract. If Camilla forged it, there will be traces in the archives." Charles nodded, his eyes lighting up. "You're right, but we must act secretly. Camilla has eyes and ears everywhere." They decided to check the HM Land Registry database, the agency managing land records in England. Every real estate transaction is recorded here in digital form to ensure transparency. All original contracts must be digitally stored, and if there is fraud, the system will show inconsistencies between the fake contract and the official records. Charles contacted Mr. Henry Whitmore, a former land registry employee who had handled royal transactions in the 1990s. Though retired, Whitmore still had access to the old storage system and agreed to help out of loyalty to the royal family. That very afternoon, under the grey sky of a late autumn day, Charles and Anne, disguised simply to avoid attention, drove to Whitmore's old house. The house, with moss-covered walls and dusty windows, looked like a relic from the past. Whitmore, a gaunt old man with snow-white hair, opened the door, his eyes curious but wary. "Your Majesty," he whispered, not expecting Charles to arrive so quickly. Charles smiled lightly, trying to maintain composure. "We need your help, Henry. Something related to the royal family." Whitmore nodded, leading them into a small room where wooden shelves were stacked with yellowed files. The smell of old paper and dust filled the space, making Anne wrinkle her nose slightly. They began checking. Whitmore logged into the land registry system, entering the land registry number from the contract. Charles stood behind his heart, pounding, sweat rolling down his forehead. "If we find nothing, it's all over," he thought, anxious. Anne, patient, examined each line of data with Whitmore. After nearly 2 hours, Whitmore suddenly stopped, pointing at the screen. "Here!" he said, his voice excited. A digitized contract appeared with signatures from Camilla Laura Parker Bowles and a notary named Richard Lyle, who was noted for accepting bribes. This document proved Camilla had used a fake company to transfer royal land to Laura. Charles slammed his fist on the table. "This is the final evidence." Anne placed her hand on his shoulder, her eyes full of joy. But both knew danger still lurked. Camilla might have suspected this trip. They carefully copied the documents to a USB and left Whitmore's house in the dark. On the way back, Charles felt his heart beating stronger than ever. He was not just fighting to protect royal assets, but also to preserve his own honor and that of his family. Meanwhile, at the palace, Camilla received a report that Charles had left London with Anne. She sat in her private room, hand gripping the wine glass tightly, her eyes full of worry. "He's looking for evidence," she muttered, fear overriding her usual confidence. She summoned Laura Parker Bowles, her daughter, to discuss. "Mother, if Charles has the original contract, we'll lose everything," Laura said, her voice trembling. Camilla tried to stay calm, but her voice lacked certainty. "I won't let that happen." She ordered increased surveillance on Charles, even planting followers on Anne. But deep down, Camilla knew the game was tilting toward Charles. Charles and Anne returned to the palace, carefully hiding the documents in a safe place, a secret safe in his private room. They knew the time had come. Charles prepared for a secret royal meeting where he would expose everything. But he was also worried, would the royal members believe him when rumors of his senility had spread throughout the palace and media? He sat in his room, looking out at the London sky, sinking into darkness, a feeling of loneliness enveloping him. The image of Camilla, the woman he once loved, appeared in his mind, but now it was just a painful ghost. "The truth will prevail," he whispered, clenching his fist. With the documents in hand, Charles was ready to confront Camilla, knowing this war would leave scars that never heal. He took a deep breath, preparing mentally for the final battle, where the fate of the royal family would be decided. Windsor Castle, with its ancient stone walls and solemn atmosphere, became the venue for the secret royal meeting on a morning in late August 2025. King Charles III entered the meeting room, his demeanor grave, but his eyes burning with determination. In his hand was a metal box containing the USB with the original contract, the final evidence to expose Camilla's conspiracy. The atmosphere in the room was tense, like a taut string with royal members, Prince William, Duchess Kate, Princess Anne, and high-level advisors, sitting silently, their eyes shifting between curiosity and suspicion. Camilla sat in a far corner, her face composed but her hands clenched under the table nails, digging deep into her palms. She knew today would be a fateful day. Charles stood in the middle of the room, took a deep breath, and his low but powerful voice rang out. "Today I will reveal a conspiracy threatening the foundation of the royal family." All eyes turned to him, some full of doubt due to the influence of rumors about his deranged mind. He turned on the machine, projecting images onto the meeting screen. "This," he said, his voice trembling with emotion, "is evidence that Camilla used a shell company to transfer royal assets to her daughter Laura. My signature was forged and the royal seal was abused." He pointed to each line, explaining in detail how Camilla, along with Laura Parker Bowles and a bribed official, had devised a sophisticated plan to legitimize this act. The room fell into silence. Only the rustling of papers and heavy breathing could be heard. Camilla, face pale, tried to maintain composure. "This is slander." She spoke up, her voice high-pitched, but lacking her usual confidence. "Your Majesty, you are mistaken. You were once treated for mental health. Perhaps you don't remember clearly." Her words were like a final blow, reminding everyone of the rumors she had meticulously sown. A high-level advisor, Mr. Edward Harrow, nodded, his suspicious eyes turning to Charles. "Your Majesty, we have heard about your secret treatment. Perhaps you signed the contract while not lucid." The question made Charles clench his fist, his face flushed with anger. But Charles had prepared for this moment. He signaled an aide to bring in Harold Grayson, Camilla's private doctor, into the room. Grayson entered, face ashen sweat beading on his forehead. Charles looked straight at him, his voice cold as ice. "Tell the truth, Grayson, or your career will end." Grayson, trembling, bowed his head and confessed, I was forced by the Queen to forge your Majesty's medical records. There was no mental health treatment. It was all a lie to cover up her actions." The room erupted in astonished whispers. William, sitting next to Kate, gripped his wife's hand tightly, his eyes full of disappointment toward Camilla. Kate shook her head slightly, as if unable to believe what was happening. Camilla, now unable to maintain her composure, stood up abruptly. "Lies!" she shouted, but her voice faltered. Her eyes panicked. Charles calmly placed the printed original contract on the table, pointing to Camilla's signature and the clear seal. "You can no longer deny it," he said, his voice low but sharp. "This is your signature, and this is evidence of your betrayal." Camilla collapsed into her chair, tears rolling down her cheeks, a rare moment revealing the weakness of this powerful woman. She looked at Charles, her eyes mixed with regret and despair. "I only wanted to protect Laura," she whispered, but those words were not enough to salvage the situation. The royal members, after the initial shock, began to speak up. William stood, his voice low but resolute. "Father, we stand with you. Camilla must take responsibility." Anne, with burning eyes, nodded. "She has gone too far." The advisors, though initially doubting Charles, could no longer deny the evidence before them. A quick decision was made. Camilla must relinquish all public power and retreat to the background. The illegally transferred assets to Laura were reclaimed, and related documents were forwarded to legal authorities for further investigation. Charles left the meeting room, stepping into the long corridor of Windsor Castle. He paused before a large window, looking out at the lush, green gardens. The sunlight illuminated his face, revealing the harsh wrinkles. He felt relieved, but also saddened. The royal family has survived, he thought, but the emotional wounds remained. Camilla, the woman he once loved, was now just a painful ghost. He recalled the months together, the moments that seemed eternal, now vanishing like smoke. The media quickly reported the incident, praising Charles as the hero preserving the royal family's integrity. Major newspapers published headlines, "King Charles uncovers conspiracy in the palace," and "Camilla stripped of power." The public, initially swayed by rumors, now turned to support Charles. He stood on the Windsor balcony waving to the crowd gathered outside, a gentle smile, but his eyes still carrying a touch of melancholy. He knew this war had left scars that would never heal, not only for him, but for the entire royal family. What do you think about Camilla's actions in plotting to seize royal assets for her daughter, and the way she used rumors to undermine Charles's credibility? Does that action deserve forgiveness? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.